Welcome to the Military Movie Club, where we dissect military films from the past and coming up in the future and looking at them from the military eye to see what really is accurate and what is inaccurate and asking some tough questions. This is the untold truth of how Forrest Gump joined the U.S. military. The year is 1994, which brought in classics like The Lion King, The Mask, Speed, Dumb and Dumber, and of course Forrest Gump. An unexpected comedy drama based on a 1986 novel topped the charts at number 2 for the highest film of 1994 about a simple man.
And the Oscar goes to Tom Hanks and Forrest Gump.
Also made the phrase,
"My mom always said life was like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get."
To break down how Forrest should have never entered into service, we should look back to the opening act of him as a child. The military theme of this movie is hard not to see throughout, as over half the movie is dedicated to his time in the military. This is even noted in the beginning when he states how his mother decided to name him Forrest Gump, which after he disclosed that his mom named him after General Nathan Bedford Forrest, later known as K to the K member, just saying, that was a famous Confederate general. Imagine him canceling himself today. He'd have to change his entire name. We haven't canceled Forrest Gump yet. I am surprised. As many remember, Forrest Gump was unable to walk on his own without the braces and miraculously runs away from his bullies that are causing him issues. Eventually, the braces break off and he's able to run ever since. In a medical perspective, Forrest would be incredibly weak and would take months of rehab to get to this point, making this beyond reasonable even in today's medical standards. Also, would likely cause motor dysfunction later in life with abnormal walking, which would make him ineligible to join the service. 2 Japanese doctors informally have gone on record to diagnose Forrest Gump with autism. Various theories have come about his condition being poliomyelitis, which can cause irreversible paralysis, typically in the legs. Also, the poliovirus ultimately would affect the lungs, killing Forrest quickly, as it would have made him unable to breathe. It was also considered he could have Rett syndrome per Mayo Clinic, which includes unusual eye movements, abnormal behaviors, cognitive disabilities, and thin, frail bones. However, there are various other symptoms and stages which this condition presents, making it unlikely. Forrest is known to be unintelligent and often uses the phrase,
"Stupid is, stupid doesn't."
Often Forrest Gump's mom shields Forrest from realizing his own intelligence level. There is a scene where the principal of his local school doesn't allow him to join the school because he has an IQ of 85 or less, which is below the limit. His mother then decides to sleep with the principal to allow Forrest to go to school.
Your mama sure does care about your schooling, son.
Yeah, that really happened. I bet you forgot that part of the movie. Wait, so you're telling me the mom gives it up once, he ends up going through elementary school, middle school, high school, nobody in this entire town says Forrest should not be in school. This guy probably needs some kind of special education. I'm very shocked by this. Unless it's a K through 12 school, I highly doubt it. Forrest then is noticed for his running abilities and is put on the college football team. Somehow he graduates college as well and ends up being approached immediately by an Army recruiter. Forrest signs up and we transition to boot camp.
Congratulations, son. Have you given any thought to your future?
Thought?
Wait, so Forrest never had to take an ASVAB, but that is actually accurate because it looks like the ASVAB, which is used to, determine the aptitude of applicants that are trying to join the military and specific jobs, looks like that was not enacted until 1968, was not widely adopted across all branches until 1972. So Forrest misses by 2 years because his film is supposedly based in 1966, and the fact that even though I think him being in infantry, he would have still gotten some kind of waiver for this. Forrest joins the United States Army and meets a young black man, Benjamin Buford Blue, also known as Bubba, on the bus taking them to boot camp. Bubba is a fellow recruit from Bayou La Batterie, whose ambition is to buy a shrimping boat to continue his family history of cooking shrimp. The film shows that these two are inseparable despite these barriers. It is known that Forrest excels in Army training and breaks a company record by assembling his M14 rifle quickly. His drill sergeant often singles him out as an exemplary soldier.
Done, drill sergeant!
To other recruits and tells him he could be a general one day. This is a cool scene because you finally see Forrest coming to being good at something, maybe finding his niche, and it's kind of rocky and rolling. You're seeing that the story, the plot is picking up here. However, this part falls apart in historical context because that drill sergeant that you see here has a yellow, red, and blue badge that's on his shoulder there, which is actually from a command called TRADOC, which is located in Virginia, which was not established until 1973. Remind you, this movie was not supposed to be placed in 1973. It's in 1966, which that command never even existed. Was it a time machine? I don't know. Meanwhile, Jenny, his love interest, had been expelled from school for wearing her school sweater to pose in Playboy and had found work in singing in the nude at the strip club in Memphis. Forrest knows this because one of his army buddies hands him the magazine and he recognizes Jenny. Can you imagine? Like, that's the worst Dear John letter. It's like, hey, I'm not even going to tell you what I'm going to do. I'm just going to do it and you're going to see it because all your friends are going to show you this magazine. Sure enough, that's what ends up happening, and Forrest still doesn't get the picture. Like, Jenny has moved on. She's doing something else. By the way, is this not just stereotypical that he would be that junior soldier that thinks he's in love with this girl that works in this industry, and the fact that he's going to pay his entire paycheck to go see her? Tell me if you guys have dealt with this before in your unit and had somebody that's fell in love with someone in this industry, please. Those stories are always great to hear about because there are some very naive people out there. Forrest and Bubba arrive in Vietnam. This part of the film does have some truth to it. When we arrive and meet Lieutenant Dan, he automatically corrects these new soldiers about saluting while in a combat zone.
Morning, sir. Oh, get your hands down. Do not salute me. There are goddamn snipers all around this area who love to grease an officer.
And this is true even in today's military while in combat zones, that many officers will wear subdued collar devices in combat zones and not shiny metal. He also tells these new soldiers,
there is one item of GI gear that can be the difference between a live grunt and a dead grunt. Stop. Cushion sole, OD green. Try and keep your feet dry.
Now, this is true because Vietnam is very wet and rainy at certain periods of the year, and on top of that, we learned from trench warfare over in World War I, where people had their feet wet for long periods of time, where essentially this would make the whole bottom half of their foot come off. Now, we learned to change your socks, that way this doesn't happen, and now every corpsman and medic known to man says he's exact. While in Vietnam, Forrest and his platoon were on patrol. The rain suddenly started, and he said this didn't stop for 4 months. This makes perfect sense because there were weather experiments conducted by the U.S. government to make this occur. Don't believe me and think this is a government conspiracy? Nope. These documents I'm referencing are from 13 January 1967 and are on the U.S. Department of State website, which discloses as Project Popeye. This was used by the Department of Defense in 1966, which just so happens to be the same time Forrest was over in Vietnam. Along the infiltration routes in North Vietnam, the southern Laos border, the objective of the program was to produce sufficient rainfall along these lines of communication to interfere with truck traffic between North and South Vietnam. Recently improved cloud seeding techniques would be applied on a sustained basis in a non-publicized effort to induce continued rainfall through the months of the normal dry season. 50 studies were conducted, which resulted in 82% producing rain. They saw this as a success and impaired the Vietnamese and unable to make repairs. Also noted that one time with cloud seeding resulted in a cloud moving towards U.S. forces, which created 9 inches of rainfall within 4 hours. Not only did they want to stop Vietnamese movement, but they also wanted to impact the Vietnamese troops psychologically. If you guys want an entire video on the Project Popeye, leave it down in the comments below. I definitely will make a whole separate video. There's a lot more information there. Action. Like I said, Forrest Gump rescues Lieutenant Dan and Bubba, yet Bubba dies and Forrest is unfazed and the movie just moves on. This movie is just so fast paced. It's like you're with Bubba from boot camp, you end up with him on deployment, you're first arriving, and it's just weird here because he has such a strong bond later in the film with Lieutenant Dan. Yes, they were both injured. Yes, they were in the hospital together, but he has his resentment towards him, which would push them apart. You see more of that connection with the lieutenant, which seems odd and listed to lieutenant would not be something that would be that common. Lieutenant Dan, after being dragged out by Forrest, is sitting along the water and pops smoke right where he is at. This is interesting as they just left a firefight. Doing this would likely give away position for the enemy to attack and take down a helo that would come to save them. Also, the grassy area they're in likely wouldn't be a good landing zone due to the uneven terrain and tight spaces next to the tree line. Lastly, he has no communications with anyone else as he's dragged away from his radio upon initial injury by Forrest. Forrest is eventually informed in the hospital that he's being awarded the Medal of Honor and goes to go tell Lieutenant Dan, which he's missing from his bed because he's sent home. What is interesting is when Forrest is notified the entire time that he is being called Private Gump. But when we watch him wearing the Medal of Honor and being pinned, it shows 2 weeks later he is a sergeant. So did he get promoted due to his Medal of Honor actions? We know that Forrest Gump was in the military at least a year at this point. Never made it to Lance Corporal. What is happening? However, there are many issues with Forrest's new sergeant uniform. You see him near the bus and catch a glimpse of his sleeve. Forrest has 2 service stripes. It is known that you must have at least 4 years of service to earn one, which this would indicate 8 years of service. He also does have an accurate red, white, and blue circular patch there to resemble his service in the Vietnam War on his shoulder. Also, he wears the Vietnam Service Medal, but it shows multiple stars. This doesn't seem right. Typically, stars are used when earning a medal multiple times. Per the movie timeline, he only served 1 deployment, and this would have been multiple deployments to Vietnam. He should in theory have 1 ribbon without any stars on it. Lastly, he has a good conduct ribbon with no stars, but Forrest hasn't even served 3 years of service yet. And if you wanted to match his service stripes, he would need at least 1 star on this ribbon to be accurate. It is believed by some that Forrest was allowed to join under Project 1000, also known as McNamara's Folly, which took place in 1966, the same time that Forrest was in the military. The basis of this theory is that McNamara was allowing people that were uneducated or maybe less physically fit to join the military. During this time period, 53,000 were drafted to help assist with the conflict in Vietnam. The idea was that these individuals could obtain skills to be more beneficial to society and financial stability. The men that were joining the project were known as New Standards Men, NSM for short, or informally known as morons. For the Armed Forces qualifications test, everyone except the bottom 10% were accepted. They had also essentially found them to be more taxing since many slowed down the non-NSM group. It was also noted that many non-NSM soldiers were taking the ASVAB test for these men, and recruiters were fudging information to allow these men to join. It was also known that these men were hard to train and truthfully had no idea what they were doing. This resulted in 25% being kicked out within 18 months, and 10% lost their lives, and a decent percentage deserted. Go figure. Military recruiters lying? Yeah, that still stands the test of time. And that's probably why. That's not the only thing that stands the test of time here. That's because these NSM members that were part of this group of people that they were trying to recruit, they say that 25% had to go over into the Army, 18% in the Marine Corps, which were the highest amounts in comparison to the Navy and the Air Force. And that may be why we still see this correlation between the idiots between the Army and the Marine Corps and the smart people joining the Navy and the Air Force. Does this mean Forrest Gump joined under these circumstances? I don't really believe so. He's fast at putting his rifle together. He's also saved 3 people's lives, even though some of them did pass away later on. On top of that, he also has a college education and passed high school, where most of these men did not. However, on the contrary, it does look like he could have been part of this group because these men were known not to integrate very well with society, which if you look at Forrest Gump, the whole running act that comes afterwards, like it seems like a mental breakdown. He doesn't work a job. He doesn't get a skill that he's used. He's done nothing with it other than run, which he was doing from the very beginning of the movie anyway.
I'm pretty tired. Think I'll go home now.
So let's review this movie a little bit and tell you this. The classic Forrest Gump is still Forrest Gump. Is it still good, standing the test of time? Yes, but seeing it from this eye, seeing it from this perspective definitely changes where I sit with it, because I would have maybe said 10 out of 10 before I rewatched it and really took this look and kind of broke this down a little further. Plot moves so fast that the character development doesn't really need to occur, where you look at Forrest Gump never really changing over time. The biggest obstacle he ever overcomes is essentially this leg issue he has, and on top of that, then you've got Jenny here, which really doesn't change and screws him over constantly the entire movie, and you see them pitted towards each other. The only character development that I can really see that I think is dynamic here is Lieutenant Dan, as he's on a high coming through the military time, goes down as he's hurt, comes back up to the end as he invests in Apple, and he probably should be a billionaire right now. If you're looking for a fast-paced military film without much expectation or explanation of plot points, this might be it. But if you're going to sit down and try and analyze it, I'm going to be honest, it's not very in-depth of a story, to be honest with you. It's pretty surface level. It seems like everything happens to him incidentally, and it's just like, I don't know why he joined the Army. It's just kind of like, bam, he's in the Army now. I will give this an 8 out of 10 just out of rewatching it. I think that it does hold up. I'm asking you guys to make your submissions if you would like to review this as well and include you in this part of the video over at NickyMGTV.com, and we can go over the next movie. But all right, so if you like this video, we do appreciate it. Please like, comment, subscribe, notification bell, everything. thing, I promise you guys, I have to say it because you guys don't do it unless I do, and I really appreciate it. We're on the road to 100K, like I said, and you can also support this channel over at patreon.com with special perks and benefits as well. Also, on top of that, we do have a membership link for benefits here on YouTube down below this video, also on the main channel page as well. Any support helps, and I do promise you guys it makes a big difference here. But as always, if you guys do have questions about this or anything else, you can always hit me up on Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, or down in the comments below. I love you guys. I'll see you next time.
I pick it up right where I left off. The banging the drums and they point to me.